Barakatah Yahweh, Ba'ashem Yahweh Shai, Ba'ashem, Racha Kudash. Welcome to another live lesson. This is a response to our Elder Apostle Gabar's video that he did earlier. The Harlot is not the Vatican, so this is a response to the Harlot is not the Vatican. And all of this is based off of a video that Elder Apostle Tahar did earlier, which we were watching at the park earlier, called The Importance of Knowing the Whole Book of Revelation. And he mentioned how the GOCC, and there's many other Israelite groups out there that teach that the Roman Catholic Church is Babylon the Great, which is totally false. So I was just here at home because I was with the apostle earlier, Elder Apostle Gabar, and he was about to go live, and I really wasn't in the spirit to really film. And plus, you know, I had some gas issues going on, and you know, I told the apostle, you know, I saluted him, you know, told him spirit be with him, and I told him, I said, hey apostle, you're gonna probably be out here about an hour and a half. He said, nah, I'm gonna, you know, leave a little, you know, I'm just gonna say a few words. And sure enough, he did a little over an hour, like hour and 1 minute or so, like that, you know. So I only watched maybe 2 or 3 minutes of it before I set everything up. So, you know, this is all stemming from through the spirit, you know, of Yahweh B'Shem Shai, from Elder Apostle Tahar to Elder Apostle Gabar, and things that we were discussing. And what I want to do in this lesson is there is doctrines and dogmas. That's the title right there. There are doctrines and dogmas. Somebody might want to take that up. I could see the up and coming Elder Karatazar out of Vegas, or some of them other elders, you know, going into that. There are doctrines and dogmas that are held in the Roman Catholic Church, that are held in the so-called Christian churches, or so-called Roman Catholic Church, so-called Christian churches, that cement their, you know, their take on the breakdown of the scriptures. And the plantation Christianity, one of their main tenets is that Babylon the Great is the Roman Catholic Church, because they based that off of the teachings of an ex-Jesuit which did 27 years, called Alberto Rivera. And he was teaching that the 7 heads and 10 horns, and that represented the Roman Church, you know, the Roman Catholic Church, which it doesn't. You know, now the Roman Catholic Church is the false prophet in the book of Revelation, but that's as far as it goes. The 7 heads and 10 horns in the book of Revelation is a representation of, or symbolic for, the whole beast system of Esau, going back to all the different empires, seven major empires, including one more, which is the 8th, which was the 7th, which is the 8th head, beginning with the Greeks, the Romans, the French, the Spanish, Germania Major, Germania Minor, Britain, or England, whatever you want to call it, and then America being the 8th head. That is what the beast, you know, should I say the 7 heads and 10 horns, or the 7 heads represent. The 10 horns represent the European Union, which is called today, had different names in the past. And, you know, the whole beast system represents all of these different European countries coming together as one through their military and different policies, which is known as NATO. So what I did, you know, outside of what the apostles already, you know, did in their lessons, I typed in, as I was sitting on my couch, listening to some fall jazz, you know, just sitting there listening to a playlist on YouTube, and sipping a little yayan, which I was sipping a little yayan earlier. So please forgive my slurredness. If my words slur a little bit, please forgive me. But what I did was I typed in who is the harlot of Revelation, because I wanted to see what would come back. So this is one of the main ones that came back. Babylon the Great, commonly known as the whore of Babylon, which they're right, refers to both a symbolic female figure and place of evil mentioned in the book of Revelation in the Bible, which it pretty much encompasses, you know, the second part of it, a place of evil mentioned in the book of Revelation in the Bible. It really didn't represent any female in particular, because that female that the Apostle John saw, which was identified as a harlot, was just used symbolically for this place, because a harlot, pretty much, she lays down with any man as long as he has the right amount of money. And this is how America is. America is that harlot that if you have the right amount of money, the right bidding, the right, you know, pull or whatever the case is, you can get some of that funk snatch. You know what I mean? So that's where America takes place in this. Now, when you read the book of Revelation with true understanding, there is no way that the Roman Catholic Church can represent Babylon the Great, except in the deluded minds of these Roman Catholics, or actually not the Roman Catholics, because the Roman Catholics, the wacky-tacky Christians and other so-called whatever, whoever they may be, say that the Roman Catholic Church is Babylon the Great. But it's just in the deluded minds of those that try to identify the Roman Catholic Church as that. If you want to point to the right direction of who or how or what identifies the Roman Catholic Church in the book of Revelation, all you have to do is go to the false prophet. That is a representation of it. So what I did was I went here and I clicked on here, right? And it says Babylon the Great, commonly known as the whore of Babylon, refers both a symbolic figure and a place of mention in the book of Revelation, of evil place mentioned in the book of Revelation, a place of evil, which we just read about that. It represents a place of evil mentioned in the book of Revelation, which is America. It says her full title is stated in Revelation 17, verse 5, as Mystery Babylon the Great, the mother of prostitutes, abominations of the earth. And it goes into the Greek, blah, 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 whoop-de-whoop, sun, moon, and stars. So we jump down here to preterist interpretation. It says, some scholars interpret Babylon as being based on historical places and events. It's basically not a historical place. It is a place, but it won't be historical until the Most High destroys it and puts it in the pages of history. You know? It says Rome and the Roman Empire. So they're trying to say that Babylon the Great, because I've heard people say, as a matter of fact, we had a conversation with an individual, Irish cat, older gentleman, actually yesterday when we were at this particular park / beach or whatever you want to call it. And when I asked him, because, you know, we had a discourse back and forth, you know, pretty good discourse, you know, and talking about money system, bankers, and, you know, history, different things like that. And I asked him, you know, who is Babylon the Great? He said Rome, because this is in the mind of these people that, you know, that so-called study the scriptures. So they say Rome and the Roman Empire. And ultimately you have those that say that the Roman Catholic Church is Babylon the Great, which she is not. And their justification for it is what I'm about to read now, and also because it says that there were 7 mountains, and Rome was established upon 7 hills. That's why they say that, okay? But it says here, 1 Peter 1, 5 and 13 implies the author is in Babylon. So they're saying that when Peter wrote this letter, you know, that he was in Babylon, right? Which has been held to be a coded reference to Rome. So in other words, when we read, or when you go into the history, their interpretation is that the Apostle Peter, when he was in Rome, wrote these letters, these epistles of 1st and 2nd Peter. He wrote them in Rome, but since he didn't want to offend, the so-called established society of Rome, he clandestinely or in code said that Rome was Babylon, right? Now, let's pause there for a minute because we're going to get back to this. Let's pause there for a minute. If that was the case, that the Apostle Peter was trying to hide from the message that he was given by Yahushua, which Yahushua didn't hide from the message, that's why he got crucified, because that was a part of what he had to go through. But if the case was that Peter, the Apostle Peter, right, was trying to use Babylon as a code for Rome so that he wouldn't be persecuted, why is this written? Acts 5:40. And to him they agreed, and when they had called the apostles and beaten them, I believe this is the Apostle Peter and the Apostle John, for teaching in the name of Yahushua, right? So it says they commanded that they should not speak in the name of Yahushua and let them go. So they beat them for teaching in the name of Yahushua, right? So obviously it should say the next thing it should say is that, and thus from that point on, the apostles used a code name for Yahushua so that they wouldn't have to suffer persecution for teaching in that name. But it says, and they departed from the presence of the council, rejoicing that they were counted worthy to suffer shame for his name. So if they were worthy, if they rejoice in the fact that they got beat for teaching in the name of Yahushua, why would the Apostle Peter use code for Babylon, or for Rome, as Babylon, because he was afraid to get persecuted for that? When you read the different history, that's what they say. So it says, it says, 1 Peter 1:5-13 implies that the author is in Babylon, which he was not in Babylon, which it doesn't say in 1st or 2nd Peter where the apostle was at. Now I looked at the end of the book of 1st Peter. It didn't really say. I didn't look at the end of 2nd Peter. So I'm gonna look at that, Lord's will. Matter of fact, I'm gonna grab the book right now. Yeah, neither one of these, because sometimes when you have certain Bibles, they may have like a little annotation at the end written from so-and-so by so-and-so. It doesn't have it in either one of those. So it says, which has been held to be a coded reference to Rome. Many biblical scholars believe that Babylon is a metaphor for the pagan Roman Empire at the time it persecuted Christians. No, it was not. Now, since ancient Rome is connected to America, I guess you can kind of say, yeah, that it could be a part of it, but really it's a representation of today. The daughter of Babylon, Babylon the Great, which is America, right? It says, before the Edict of Milan in 313, according to Eusebius of Caesarea, Babylon would be Rome or the Roman Empire, but there's no connection scripturally with it. These are just councils and documentations and insertions, and different things that were held as tradition as to what this is and what that is. There's really no correlation in the scripture with it. So it says, and Peter makes mention of Mark in his first epistle, which they say, hearsay, she say, he say, that he wrote in Rome itself, as is indicated by him when he calls a city by a figure Babylon, as he does in the following words. The church that is at Babylon, keep in mind the word the church that is at Babylon, elected together with you, salute you, and so does Marcus my son. 1 Peter 5:13. So we read 1 Peter 5:13. The church that is at Babylon, elected together with you, saluteth you, and so doth Marcus my son. We go to Babylon, right? When we find it, Babylon, which goes back to Babal, which means confusion. It says Babylon confusion, a very large and famous city, the residence of the Babylonian kings, situated on both banks of the Euphrates. It goes into the history of Babylon, blah, blah, blah. And then they go off talking about how it was destroyed. It was not destroyed, it was transferred. When you read the Bible, not when you read this falsified history of the territory of Babylonia, allegorically of Rome as the most corrupt seat of idolatry and the enemy of Christianity. So when you do research on this verse here, right, they're saying that there was a church that was in Rome that Peter quoted or symbolically mentioned as Babylon. But here's the problem. When you read through here, whenever you see italicized letters in the scriptures, that means that that word does not appear there. So the Apostle Peter did not address any church. He didn't say that the church at Babylon is saluting you. Let's get that straight. We scroll down. Church that is what's here. Wait a minute. How come ain't that? Wait a minute. If I go with the, it'll pop up. The pop up. Ho, a ho. This, that, these, etc. But okay, no. Wait a minute. We go there and we go to at. The and at. We got n, which is usually in, but then you could use it as at, in, by, with, etc. Right? Go back. We go to church. That is. I'm clicking. I know you can hear. Where is the entry for church? There was no church. See? So they're trying to use this as saying that Peter was saying that there was a church in Rome that he allegorically or symbolically called Babylon. Because we read down here Babylon. But no, because when we go and we type in the word church, right? We got Matthew 16:18 all the way down. All the way down, all the way down. And then we got all the way to Revelation. So you have the word church all the way from Matthew to Revelation. When we click on Matthew 16:18, and I say also unto thee that thou art Peter, and upon this rock will I build my church. Now notice that the word church here is not italicized. That means when something is italicized, means when you look at the letters are on a slight slant towards the right. In italics, right? So the word church, and the gates of hell shall not prevail against it. So now when we click on here, we see and, we see words, we see I say, we see words, we see also, we see somewhere we could click. We scroll down, we scroll down, we scroll down, and we see church. And lo and behold, what? There is an entry. The word is ecclesia, which means ek, out. Ecclesia is, or kalein, is to call out. Right? So it tells you a gathering of citizens called out from their homes. So pretty much it's a calling out into a congregational assembly. Right? But why isn't the word church in 1 Peter 5:13, where they say that church that is at Babylon is saluting these Israelite foreigners in these different regions? You see? It's not there. No está ahí. Because now, let's get some understanding as to why this is written. Where is Babylon? When we type in Babylon, right? Let's type in Babylon. Let's go to images. Where we at? Right here. We go to images, right? Let's go to Babylon maps or map. Boom. All right. Where is Babylon? We're looking for Babylon. Boom. Babylon. Let's see. Babylon. Lo and behold. Yeah, this goes into too much. Babylon. What do we have here? Babylon is located right on the east side of the Euphrates River between the Tigris River. So in this region, right here between these two rivers, the Euphrates and the Tigris, you have Babylon. You have Sumer, different, where Abram, which is his name was later changed to Abraham, was born. Lo and behold, Babylon. This is that region. Okay? Now let's go from there. Okay, so we got church, we got that. Now Babylon. Now let's go to Acts 2 and 5. And there were dwelling at Jerusalem Jews, devout men out of every nation under heaven. Because this is, so you have to understand, this is the silver bullet for these so-called Christians, these plantation Christians, to say that Rome was being identified as Babylon. In other words, the Roman Catholic Church, which is in Rome, they're saying that that's being, even though the Roman Catholic Church didn't really exist back then, but they're saying that this is the scripture that substantiates that it's talking about the Roman Catholic Church, and it doesn't, because the word church doesn't appear there. All right. Now go to Acts 2 and 5. And there were dwelling at Jerusalem Jews, devout men out of every nation under heaven. Right. So these were Israelites that were coming 3 times a year to Jerusalem. This happens to be around the time of the Feast of First Fruits, the Feast of Weeks, because this was after the Passover. All right. This is when the first day of the Feast of First Fruits. And they were there because this was a leftover, so to speak, of them that came to Jerusalem 3 times in a year, because it all correlated back to back. The memorial of blowing of the trumpets. You had the Sabbath, the Passover, and then later on you had the Feast of Weeks, or the Feast of First Fruits, which came after, not too long after the Passover, and then later on they will come back. So Salaki on that, they will come back for the Feast of Tabernacles. But those 2 high holy days, the Passover and the Feast of First Fruits, or the Feast of Weeks, was all together, and this is where these individuals were at. So when we read down further to the 9th verse, it says Parthians and Medes and Elamites, because it said the Jews, devout men out of every nation under heaven. So it's giving you some of the places where these individuals came from: Parthians and Medes and Elamites, and the dwellers in Mesopotamia, and in Judea and Cappadocia and Pontus and Asia. So when we go down to Mesopotamia, you have the word Mesopotamia, between 2 rivers, and that's what it breaks down to between 2 rivers, the entire country between the 2 rivers, the Tigris and the Euphrates. And we saw in this map, actually this map here, that Babylon is within the parameters of where Mesopotamia is. So you had a lot of Israelites that came from this region here. You had Israelites from Babylon. You had Israelites from the Persian Empire. You had Israelites from Iran. You had Israelites from Iraq, back then in the ancient names. All of these regions here, you had Israelites that were coming to Jerusalem every year to keep the feasts. You see? So that's, where they were at. This is why the Apostle Peter said, they of Babylon, elected together with you, salute you, and so doth Mark my son. All right? So it has nothing to do with a church in Babylon. It has nothing to do with Peter using Babylon as a metaphor for Rome. This is not something that can be used for, or metaphorically, that the Roman Catholic Church is known as Babylon the Great. Babylon the Great is America. Let's read this. Mesopotamia. right, is a historical region of Western Asia situated within the Tigris-Euphrates River system, which we saw that in this map. Mesopotamia, that's all this in between here. It had other names, but this is one of them. And what do you have there? You have Babylon, Akkad, Uruk, Sumer, so on and so forth. So these people in First Peter, let me see if there's any more here. Within the Euphrates River system in the northern part of the Fertile Crescent, it occupies the areas of present-day Iraq and parts of Iran, Kuwait, Syria, and Turkey. So you had Israelites coming from all those regions. So the Apostle Peter was saying that these people that were from Babylon, from those areas, were saluting you. That's all that means. You know? And, you know, I mean, this is just something I was looking into, and the Spirit had me, you know, go through it, and, you know, I just brought it out as a edification. You know? Now, I know Spirit's gonna have other, you know, apostles, elders, you know, bishops, you know, do other lessons, you know, proving that the Roman Catholic Church is not Babylon the Great, but this is just something that they have as a so-called ace in the hole to try to equate Rome or the Roman Catholic Church with Babylon. Because when you go to Revelation, the 17th chapter, it speaks about the 7 heads and 10 horns. In Revelation 17, it breaks down that the 7 heads are 7 mountains upon which the woman sitteth. And then they say that she's arrayed with purple and scarlet, and those are some of the colors of the Roman Catholic Church, but that has nothing to do with the Roman Catholic Church. The Roman Catholic Church is identified in the scriptures as the false prophet. You know, so with that, I pray that I didn't lose anybody. You know, I know this is, you know, more like a sort of a historical, you know, going into the scriptures and going into different points, you know, to show you that this is not talking about Rome. It's talking about the people that were actually, the Israelites that were actually in the regions of Babylon, and those regions there that were given a salutation to the Israelite foreigners that were in, you know, that region where the Apostle Peter was writing this letter to. You know, so with that, I pray that your brothers and your few sisters have been edified. Till the next time I say, Shalom.